would be an important day to take some notes, and more important to pay attention. This is really, really foundational to everything that we do. We're beyond the fact that we are stressed. We are beyond knowing what happens to us when we do let stress remain as a functioning part of us. Now, from this point on, it's all about how do we keep ourselves from being stressed in the first place, and when we do get stressed, how do we turn it off? And so what we're looking at here today, if we look at our stress model, we're going to be dealing with this place right here. Remember what did we call this? Our perceived threat, right? We decided it didn't matter if it's real or not, and what percent of the time, again in review, is it not real? 99 point some percent. So less than 1% of the time is this threat real, but it doesn't matter to us because we're still saying uh-oh all the time. And anytime we say uh-oh, there it goes. Okay? So it seems to me that the most valuable thing we can do is prevent it in the first place. Logically, then, what do we need to do? What does that, just thinking logically, what does that involve, or what do we have to deal with in order to prevent it in the first place? Did that make sense when I asked that? Where does all stress begin? With our thoughts. Not what's happening out there, which we're going to play with today. It always begins with our thoughts, and so if stress always begins with our thoughts, always, then the best thing we could possibly do is figure out how to adjust our thoughts so that stress does not happen. Does that make sense? I mean, that just seems like the most logical thing. If I can just think differently, if stress is based on how I think, if I can just think differently, problem solved. Right? Is it that easy? What's the problem with that?
It's hard to change the way you think.
Very hard. Yeah, and I acknowledge that. I'll be the first to admit, changing how we constantly are thinking is really difficult because most of it we do without even thinking, what am I thinking about? So we do have to start taking charge of what's going on up here. And today and for the next few weeks, we're going to explore how to do that. Now, first of all, well, let's start with this simple kind of, I don't know if demonstration is the right word, but in any situation that we find ourselves stressed, for whatever reason, in any situation, we can immediately ask ourselves 3 questions that if we answer them correctly, we'll find that this stress, this perceived threat, just these are the 3 questions. They're kind of not magical, but they seem to work. And the first question that I can ask myself whenever I'm in a situation of any kind, getting ready to take a test, calling up somebody on a date, going to an interview, whatever, you name it, shooting a foul shot with 1 second left in the game. You can ask yourself these 3 questions and no threat. And these are the questions. The first one is, am I in danger here? In other words, in this situation. Am I in danger in this situation?
You mean physical
Right. Yes. Am I in physical? Thank you for that clarification. Am I in physical danger? Now, what did we decide about that? Very rare. Less than 1% of the time. So, if we say to ourselves, the correct answer to that is no. If I say to myself, oh, well, I'll be all right. I'm not in danger. Then, what we have to do is we have to get this connection between our frontal lobes, this part of our brain that processes things. And remember the video, the hypothalamus, that part of us that is initiating the stress response. We need to get the connection between our processing part of our brain, our logical thinking part of our brain. The hypothalamus is always listening to that. Our more ancient part of us is always listening to what we're saying. And so if we say the right things, it'll say, oh, no problem. I don't have to turn on the juices. I don't have to get the adrenaline and the cortisol flowing. I don't have to do any of that. I can just stay calm. But that has to come from our thoughts. So if we think correctly, first thing we can ask is, am I in danger here? The second thing that we can ask ourselves is kind of the same, but sort of different. Can I handle this? In other words, can I handle this without dying? Can I handle this without experiencing physical pain? Logical question. Yes? What's the correct answer to that? Yes? Now, here's an even better question. How do you know that you can handle this? Where can you look that can accurately tell for you, oh, well, I can handle this? Where can you look? Think about it. Yes. Why do you say that? She said our past experiences.
Because most of it already or something similar to it and you got through it.
Yeah, no death. How many tests have you taken in your life? I mean, a ton, right? And guess what? You didn't die a single time. So why would this be any different? How many times have you called somebody up to ask them out on a date? And survived. Lived through it. Lived to tell the tale. Why would this be any different? How many times have you talked to somebody new that you didn't know before? And now here's a new person who you'd like to talk to. But you're not sure, it's kind of scary. Well, you look at your past experience and go, oh, I did it all those times. I guess I can do it again. See, what you're trying to do here is you're trying to convince your system that you're not in danger. That's all you're trying to do by answering these questions accurately. Does that make sense? So the correct answer is, yeah. Because my past experience proves to me that this should be no different. The third question that we can ask, and the one that springboards us into everything we'll do for the next few weeks, is, can I think about this differently? If all stress begins with a thought, and it's the thought that's initiating the stress response, if we can think about whatever it is in a different way, can we then bypass the need for the stress response to turn on. Is that possible? Must be. Let's look at a few scenarios. Now, a lot of things happen out there